Howdy ho, and welcome to this video blog entry. Today I would like to talk about a topic which became rather important to me over the last few years: the motion clarity of gaming monitors. As one might assume, possessing a gaming monitor usually means that I like playing video games a lot. And similar to hi-fi enthusiasts for audio, this can be applied to visual sensory input as well. Video games usually are all about moving pictures, and I, as a gamer, want to ensure the best picture quality possible to enjoy my games. When we are talking about monitors, we are discussing electronic devices used to show still or moving pictures, usually by emitting light to a viewer. There are exceptions to that rule though with e-paper displays, but today we are focusing on technologies usually used for moving pictures and not for reading text. As these lines are written and recorded in spring 2023, two variants of displays are popular to achieve this goal: LCD and OLED. LCDs use a white light in the back of the monitor and a blocking filter in the front, which selectively filters out light to change the color of a single addressable element on the screen, we usually call the pixel. OLEDs differ here a bit, as each pixel by itself is emissive and not a filter. This has positive effects on the contrast, but apart from that, both are rather similar looking. To achieve the illusion of motion, it is required to stimulate the viewer with rapidly changing pictures. If the frame rate, the number of presented images per second, is not high enough, we are just watching a slideshow. But how high is it in numbers? For movies, it used to be 24 Hz. For television, it is 50 Hz in Europe and 60 in the US. Gaming monitors, on the other hand, nowadays achieve 144 Hz to 500. But why so high? Why this range of frame rates? And this is where we start. Both LCD and OLED are usually sample and hold type of displays. This means that they show their image permanently and change directly from one image to the next. This seems logical and is perfectly fine for the average office application, as we don't want a flickery screen like in the past with CRTs, which are black if the picture is not refreshed constantly. Then why is this sample and hold type wrong for gaming? We need to analyze how our eyes perceive our world to actually understand this. We use this animation to help us. This is Bob. Bob likes to watch moving objects. Right now he observes a white block of moving text on a black rectangle. Alice next to him thinks he's crazy for doing so, looking at the black rectangle anyway, but at a fixed position. The text moves like a pendulum, so it reaches its maximum speed in the exact center of the black rectangle. How does the perceived image, which both our spectators have in their mind, at this very moment look like? Bob, having his eyes fixed on the moving block, sees it perfectly sharp, while the rest is blurred. His human eyes are averaging the incoming light, blurring everything that is moving in his view. Alice, on the other hand, having her view fixed at the black rectangle, sees everything static sharp, but the moving text is blurred. What are your thoughts about this? Of course it is like that. Objects which are moving fast are blurry, and that is perfectly fine as our body has its limits. Now, let us replace the black rectangle with a computer monitor, and the moving text will be replaced by pixels at the top, while in the center it's still a real-life object. Does this change anything? Well, yes, actually. Consider this. Before, the moving text was part of our real world. It moved continuously and steadily from the left to the right and back. Now it's generated by the monitor and has to follow its rules of showing images. These rules are limitations in resolution and frame rate. The precision at which the text moves is now restricted in position by the resolution and time by the frame rate. One can say that the continuous realm was replaced by a discrete one. Discrete in position and time. Let's watch again how Alice and Bob are perceiving their world. the result might be unexpected. While the real-world object in the center is still sharp, the virtual object at the top is blurry. For Alice it is a different story. She sees the moving text multiple times, even so only one object should exist. What happened, and how is this possible? As discussed before, to achieve motion, these monitors have to change from one frame of animation to the next. The monitor in question here uses an IPS panel and is therefore based on LCD technology. To change from one frame to the next, the amount of light coming through the liquid crystals are altered. And this takes a certain amount of time, which can and is measured usually during product reviews. Here are some examples from sites like TFT Central and Ratings. The duration is also not fixed but measured from one specific value to another specific value, as the speed of change can depend on the current state. This is usually called the gray-to-gray transition time. In our example, this monitor is quite bad. It requires the duration of a full frame period to actually change the shown image to the next. In the last years, monitors are getting faster and faster at this. So we are on the right track, aren't we? Look at this OLED monitor. It has a pixel response time of 0.48 milliseconds. This might be really fast. It surely must have great motion capabilities. At least the manufacturer wants me to believe so. Maybe we have to change our simulated scenario. Right at this very moment, the time it takes to change the pixel value is equal to the duration of a single frame. Our monitor is currently running at 60 Hz, and so the gray-to-gray time is about 16.6 milliseconds. This surely can't be a great monitor. We need to lower that to get a better picture. How about a pixel response time of 0? Let's do that and repeat the simulation. Again, the perception of Bob and Alice. But nothing has changed, didn't it? The vision of Bob is again blurred. How can this be? We had the lowest pixel response time possible, it's 0 after all. Let's enhance the eyes of Bob using cyborg technology and give him the vision of a slow motion camera capable of thousands of frames per second and repeat the experiment. Can you see that? The motion of Bob's eyes are continuous as he's trying to follow the moving block of text, but the image itself is jumping as the actual shown frames are discrete in time. The blurring of Bob's human eyes are doing then the rest. Is this problem fixable? We have certain options here. The monitor Bob is using is configured for a frame rate of 60 Hz. What will happen if we double this to 120? The perceived blur is reduced. But why? The amount of jumpiness is reduced as the frame is changed more frequently. Still, the blur is not 0. Let us enhance the frame rate further. We are now running at 240 Hz. The blur is reduced even further, but still not 0. But we are on the right track, aren't we? Maybe, but things are getting surely costly right now. Achieving a frame rate of 230 Hz is very difficult with games of high visual fidelity. This might only work for competitive games optimized to not put a high burden on the system. Technologies like NVIDIA DLSS, motion reprojection, or space warp might improve the situation though, as those reduce the load on the GPU, as a low-resolution picture is upscaled or interpolated in-between frames are generated to enhance the frame rate. So everything will be fine in the future? Well, sadly no. We have a half-century of legacy games running at 60 Hz. Games originally optimized for the display technology of their time, the CRT monitor. Also, there are quite some games released today which are running at a fixed frame rate of 60 Hz. Some examples are Freedom Planet, released in 2014, Factorio, released in 2020, and Neuter, also released in 2020. One might call the developers of these games lazy, but think about it. Freedom Planet is now quite old, and games with pixel graphics tend to prefer a fixed frame rate for proper sprite animation, while first-person shooters usually don't have this limitation. I remember that even the original Half-Life was able to run at different frame rates. Games like Factorio or Noita have their technical reasons for being limited to a certain frame rate, as those games have a very high technical complexity, with advanced physics in the case of Noita, or a very complex game state in the case of Factorio. So we need to find a future-proof solution for creative games like these. Cathode ray tubes didn't have this problem in the past, but people seem to have forgotten and accepted the picture quality of an LCD monitor. Bob is curious now and would like to view the moving block of text displayed on a CRT monitor with a refresh rate of 60 Hz. Let's check out what his human eyes are perceiving. What's that? There is no blur. I mean, yes, there is a little, but it's negligible compared to what we've seen on a 60 Hz LCD screen before. How can this be? And why is the picture darker than before? Let's replace Bob's human eyes again with a slow motion camera. The CRT is showing its image only for a fraction of a second. The rest of the time it is just black. In our case here, the CRT uses an artificial phosphor simulated to be excited for 1 millisecond, and this happens 60 times per second. So there is much more time the screen is black than showing the expected content. The older audience will probably remember that the screen flickered because of this. This is especially worsened in Europe with 50 Hz instead of 60. So why does this improve the quality of the motion? Why does it look so sharp? This has to do with our biology. Every time we see the picture, this moment is captured and actually stored by our eyes as incoming light is actually accumulated in our vision cells over time. It's like a photo camera, which gets brighter but more blurry with an increased shutter duration. When following the moving block of text, our eyes will do this continuously in anticipation of its future position. And at the anticipated position, our expectations do match the reality as the screen flashes again, showing the expected image. As a result, the moving block of text is sharp. Why do I have made this video to watch for you? Customers might have forgotten how motion clarity actually looked like in the past with CRTs, as they went obsolete in about 2003, when LCDs were finally catching up in terms of color vibrance. This is 20 years ago. Young gamers are having their driver license now without ever having perceived a working CRT in their life. This makes it easy for monitor manufacturers to get away with the current line of products. I don't want to attack the current display technology in general, as TFT displays have certain advantages over CRTs. For example, there are no issues with geometry, convergence, or color purity, at least with the usual RGB subpixel arrangement. Some OLEDs, though, have their problems, as pixels are sometimes unusually arranged. Also, modern LCD monitors don't have a permanent flicker like the first generation, as their current backlight technology is based on LEDs instead of cold cathode fluorescent lamps. This makes high-quality LCD monitors a good choice for photo editing and office work. Compared to CRTs, they stay pretty cool most of the time, are slim, which is good for an office desk, and also are not very heavy, in case we are talking about monitors and not 70-inch televisions. Nonetheless, I hope I've made my point here in showing why TFTs, or the way they are driven, are not the ideal display technology for moving pictures, and we need to improve on that. It's not like it isn't possible. Let's introduce the HP Reverb G2. This is the VR headset I currently own, and the used display is an LCD with an IPS panel, with a not optimal contrast. But the motion handling is phenomenal, as BFI, short for black frame insertion, is implemented using backlight strobing. This means that the backlight is switched off as the pixels are changing. This converts a sample and hold type display into an impulse-driven one, like a CRT. There also do exist monitors that have this feature implemented, but most monitors, like my Asus PG279QE, are suffering under strobe crosstalk, can't perform BFI at 60 Hz, or show only a very dark image. I want to awake the audience's curiosity and awareness. The Blurbusters are an online community about this topic. Maybe check out the UFO test to analyze the motion clarity of your current equipment. Or maybe read some articles about this problem and possible solutions. The articles might also help understand the problem, in case this video here was not of your liking. It doesn't have to stay like this, but the current market situation suggests that this problem is still ignored by monitor manufacturers. One exception here might be ViewSonic, with the Blurbusters approved line of 2 monitors in total. So we have a long way to go. If you are still listening now, this means that my job here wasn't all that bad, and more people are putting more and more effort into choosing their monitor. I'm aware that most competitive multiplayer games don't have a fixed frame rate. This is why this problem might not be a problem at all for the majority of players. But still, for retro gaming, this issue is a game breaker, and with more and more CRTs dying of old age, we are running out of options to preserve the original intended feeling. Thank you for watching.